Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. Oh, and for those tuning in for the first time, Flavor and Fiction is a segment where I read a book on my 2020 reading challenge, and then I give you a little review, and I make a recipe using a special ingredient or meal that's mentioned in the book. So the category from my 2020 reading challenge this time was a book with an animal in the title, and I chose, for double points, Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is the first book of his that I'm reading, although he won the Man Booker Prize for A Brief History of Seven Killings, which is also on my list, but started with this one. Love that cover. Beautiful. Give you a little close up. So yeah, let's talk about this book. All 620 pages of it. I'm not a huge fantasy reader, but people were talking about this book. I've heard the good, I've heard the bad. I wanted to see for myself. I don't know what to tell you about this one. I have mixed feelings. One, I love a journey. I love when it's like a group of misfits that are thrown together for a journey, you know? So in that regards, I liked it. Okay, so here's a very brief overview as to what it's about, because I feel like when you describe fantasy, there's so many twists and turns and names to remember and places to remember, and it just gets muddled when you try to give a summary. So I'll just say this. There's this man named Tracker. He is known for his nose. He can smell things like miles and miles and miles away, and when he gets someone scent, he can visualize in his mind where they are. So he is... they give a little bit about like his home life, like where he starts out. Oh my God, the sun. A little bit about his home life. And then it becomes a story within a story. Guys, the sun is not cooperating. I'm either in the blinds or in this sunlight. I hope it's not too distracting. I'm sorry. So yeah, back to the story. So they go on part of this quest, the people that he's thrown together with. Some people he knows, some he doesn't, and no one trusts anyone. Everyone's on this mission for their own reasons, which you learn throughout the book. So it tells you part of the mission, part of the journey, and then all of a sudden he's in an interrogation room being asked, where have you been for the past 4 years? And we, the reader, don't know either. So he then tells the story as to where he's been, and that becomes like the main story. And I gotta tell you, okay. So there's a royal family, and the history of the royal family is that the daughter of the king has children, and those children, usually the firstborn son, becomes king. So it's from daughter to son, daughter to son, daughter to son. Well, when the king dies, the son decides he doesn't want the daughter and her family to get the throne. He wants it. So he exiles his sister and kills her entire family. And that's not a spoiler. It's like a very minor piece of information. Now, the whole book is about trying to retrieve a child that they don't know about. And you don't know whose child it is. Different people have different guesses as to whose child it is, where this child fits in the royal family, what's happening, who's after him for what reasons. And the whole quest becomes trying to find this child. So they get Tracker to use his nose to try to find out where this child is. And it's hard because throughout like the different mythical lands, different lands have different rules and different properties. So like some of it is hard to keep up with. I feel like the book kind of went a little long in some detail, and you got a little bored, and just when you thought you were about to give up, bam, there's a twist that brings you back in. You're like, oh, okay. Like now I want to find out what happens. So in that regards, it's good. Like I said, the book was 620 pages. Personally, I don't feel it needed to be that. I feel like it could have been good at a cool 400. Also, there was a ton of overt sexual violence in this book. And I get that he was trying to create an atmosphere to tell you what the world was like, what the lands were like. But so 90% of it was unnecessary to me. Just like really graphic and violent. And I feel like if it weren't for that, this book could be a great movie. But as it stands, there are too many things in there that I would not want to see on film. And again, I don't like when authors throw in stuff like that for like sensationalism. And I feel like he was trying to pull in deeper meanings, like the way women were treated, the way, between his mother and women that were traveling with him and just different women in the book. I think the book was definitely making a statement as to how women were seen and treated. But it wasn't fun to read a lot of that information. Just my personal preference. So overall, the quality of the storytelling was good. And I may even check out his other book, the one that he won that Man Booker Prize for, because he's a good writer and a good storyteller. There were just a lot of things in this book that weren't my zhuzh. But I'm not going to give up on him as a writer because it was good. Okay, I had to move because that sunlight behind me was killing my corneas. But anyway, yeah, I had to get up to get my special recipe anyway. So you're probably wondering, what is the secret ingredient for today? Well, being that in the book, they were traveling through the forest and constantly they were eating a lot of fish and a lot of berries. Well, I've already done a fish recipe recently, so I decided to go with berries and make the simplest recipe I know, sangria. I was gonna make this delicious, like fresh cod with, tomato, basil and all that kind of stuff. And then of course, because of the quarantine, I cannot find fresh cod anywhere. So I had to settle for sangria. Oh, well. And it's a white grape strawberry peach sangria. And I made it last night and let it sit because it's better when you do that. And then right before you drink it is when you put the berries in. So I'm going to give you a little show. So normally I chop up whatever fruit I want, usually strawberries, I throw in some blueberries, but I just felt like being a little simple and keeping it classic. So I threw in some just strawberries. You can cut up however many you want, and it's gonna be delicious. I can taste the fresh squeezed lime. So yeah, this is probably dinner, because I don't feel like cooking anything else or washing any more dishes. But thank you for joining me for another episode of Flavor and Fiction. Tune in next time to see what delicious drink or recipe I make next. And be sure to subscribe. Thanks. This is delicious.